Hey, Shantae. What's up? Is there something you want to talk about? Do you want a snack? Okay, alright.
If you've been exposed to the indie game scene in any amount, you've probably heard about this purple-haired belly-dancing half-genie. Or if you've looked up anything about collecting games, Shantae's name comes up in the rare and expensive category. And it hasn't gotten any better. But why the high expense? Why the hype? Why is Shantae so desired and beloved to this day?
Because it's good.
I mean, that's honestly it. Shantae has always been adored by critics and gamers alike, praising the series for its polished Metroidvania-like gameplay, unique animal transformation mechanic, and, I mean, just look, she's so cute! The character of Shantae was co-created by Matt Bozon and Erin Bell, now Matt's wife, Erin Bozon. Erin came up with the original design and the name, inspired by one of the campers she had while working as a camp counselor. She also came up with an idea for Shantae to charm animals with dances, and this eventually got revised into the animal transformations we are familiar with today. Matt Bozon fell in love with the character immediately, and came up with Shantae's half-genie backstory along with the type of gameplay her games would have. A promising start for Shantae that would lead to many quality entries in the series. But from a sales perspective, Shantae would take some time before getting off the ground. Shantae for Game Boy Color was developed and self-funded by WayForward, where Matt Bozon was a founding member. Long story short, while the game was released to critical acclaim, it only sold approximately 25,000 copies from its first and only print. It did sell out, but a number of reasons prevented more prints from happening. This planted the seed for Shantae to become one of the most expensive and hardest to find games. Immediate sequels would also have a hard time getting off the ground, as there were a few cancel games between Shantae and Shantae Risky's Revenge. But the reason for Shantae's fanbase is due to WayForward's dedication to the series, continuing to release more entries any way they could. Their successful Kickstarter for Half Genie Hero in 2013 proved that they had a loyal following. It reached the target funding goal in just over a week after Kickstarter launch day, and by the end of crowdfunding, received around $950,000. Another outcry for more Shantae surrounded Nintendo's most popular fighting game, Super Smash Bros. In the November 2018 Smash Direct, it revealed Shantae was included as a spirit, the replacement for trophies in previous games. Then, in June 2021, she was announced to join Smash as a Mii costume. New music track included. You know what? A win's a win. I'm not gonna complain. Personally, I've always liked Shantae as a character and my brief exposure to her games. A cute design, interesting supporting cast, and a side-scrolling action genre I enjoy. The hair whipping in particular, I don't know why, it just stands out to me and I love it. Adding in her animal transformations, which she thematically does by dancing, I just love this concept of a self-reliant hero like Shantae. Yep, I've been a casual fan admirer from afar, though I did have one chance to play Shantae Risky's Revenge on my friend's 3DS. Lucky guys, the original version of the game was delisted from the eShop, so there's no way to play the original version unless you had downloaded it at the time. For interested collectors, I'm sure that adds some value to his handheld. Aw, dude, thanks for letting me play Shantae. Like, you have such a good game collection.
Yeah, happy to help, man. I don't know if you've seen my GameCube collection. That's probably my most prized system out of everything I own here. Yeah,
I haven't.
F-Zero GX is such a classic. I can't believe they haven't made another one. This game was so good when it came out.
Oh, dude, totally.
Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix. The Japanese slipcovers were very unique with the packaging compared to the US releases.
Oh, yeah.
You might not think, but Gauntlet is really expensive for a GameCube game. Not one that I would necessarily think of.
Is that right?
Yeah, I also have some cool 360 games. Some interesting.
Yeah, tell me more.
And Hot Wheels Velocity X, unfortunately no manual, but still great condition otherwise.
Luckily, all of the Shantae games were digitally released on the Nintendo eShop in April 2021, meaning there has never been an easier time to get into the series.
You know what? No more excuses. It's the 20th anniversary of Shantae. So what better way to celebrate the series than by diving right in? Shantae, I just said I'm gonna play this series. Do you really want me to read this thing? Alright. If I do this, will you be fine for the rest of the video? Okay, then settle in. As a so-called fan of indie games, I am ashamed to say that the beloved series of games known as Shantae has suffered from a tragic case of backlogging. To amend this blasphemous issue, it is my responsibility to prioritize the plain and mandatory enjoyment of the entire Shantae series. Only then, in good conscience, can I receive the title of Shantae fan. Happy? Alright, then if you're ready to go, here to kick things off is Shantae for the Game Boy Color.
Shantae's first moments starts off with a bang. Well, they sure don't waste any time. Our half-genie hero lives in Sequin Land, near a small port called Scuttletown. Shantae acts as the town's guardian, and today's attacker is the Queen of the Seven Seas, Risky Boots. She causes a ruckus around the town and winds up stealing your Uncle Mimic's newly discovered steam engine. Luckily, it's not very powerful on its own, but you learn about 4 magical relics, and if combined with the steam engine, it'll bring it up to its max destructive potential. So Shantae sets out across Sequin Land to find the relics before Risky Boots. Shantae has stood out amongst other gaming icons due to her unique moveset. Her primary weapon being her signature purple hair, using it to whip enemies left and right. This hair whip idea was actually once again inspired by Aaron, but not how you'd expect. Apparently when she turned around quickly, her long hair would whip Matt in the face. This inspired him to give this unique attack to our long-haired half-genie. Shantae's hair is her bread and butter, and is more than enough to take care of most enemies. But more fighting moves can be earned that give you flashy kicks, dives, and spins. When you buy them, they even show up in your character portrait from your inventory screen. Fun little detail. You can also buy combative items like fireballs and revolving spikes, or good old-fashioned potions to keep you healthy. These items are how you can customize your combat style. Best of all, you can buy them from shops right away. Shantae's half-genie side comes out when performing dances that transform her into different animals. You'll earn up to 4 types: monkey, elephant, spider, and a harpy. They're mainly used for platforming or puzzle-solving purposes. Not so much for combat unless you find the item for each one that allows you to attack. The monkey is by far the best because you get the highest jump height and you can climb all over the walls. The elephant and spider are more situational, mainly used as a key, quote-unquote, to access new areas. You won't use them for long periods, though it's fun to knock over tree trunks or nimbly climb up walls in the background. As for the harpy, it's OP. It gives you a power trip and lets you soar over everything, especially useful in the overworld. The dancing minigame you do to transform is what stands out most from Shantae's arsenal. You have to time your dance moves with the beat and then in a button order using the D-pad and the AB buttons. It took some effort to get the exact timing down, but it eventually became second nature to boogie down a certain way to turn into a monkey. It can be seen as breaking the pace of the game since you have to stop for a few seconds and time everything just right. But that personally never bothered me. I already thought dancing was a clever way to give Shantae more moves to work within the constraints of the Game Boy Color. And like I mentioned, very on brand with the dancing genie theme. For a device that can fit in your pocket, Shantae makes you feel like you're part of a large interconnected world. And that is awesome, because most of the fun you'll get out of this game is exploring the world itself. And there's a lot to see. Starting out, you can go either left or right, and you can keep going, and keep going, and keep going, and haven't I been here before? As you further into your journey, you realize Sequin Land is structured like a donut. All the directions you get are like the labyrinth west of Watertown or travel eastward. No, not that eastward. That felt pretty neat, though you have to keep the world loop in mind because it can trip you up. At one point, I was heading towards a mountain and was told the westerly approach is much too steep. So I went east, but hit an impassable wall. Was this the too steep part? Why didn't he tell me to go west? It took me an hour to realize I'd hit the bottom of the loop, so I guess technically, I'm taking the westerly approach at that point. Gah, fine, eastward it is then. Again, no. There are plenty of biomes to explore, typically 2 at a time as you travel between each town. They all feel distinct from one another in both visuals and what enemies show up. The desert has scorpion girls and centipede towers, the bog has these goopy slime things, and the icy mountaintop has wolves and turtles. Is that an igloo shell? Oh my god, amazing. After trekking through the biomes, you eventually come across towns where you can shop or talk with the locals. I really love this over-the-shoulder perspective where Shantae looks like she's moseying around town. It's more immersive and a cooler way to make this building selection sequence more interesting. There's also unique minigames to do like dancing at the nightclub or gecko gambling. Hey, those fighter upgrades and items, they will take a toll on your gem count. I guarantee you'll be doing one or the other to afford all that. Well, I'm pretty good with dancing now. Let's give it a shot. Okay, gambling it is then. Towns are also where you meet Shantae's supporting cast members. Erin knocked it out of the park with Shantae's design, but her friends are just as likable. I really love Sky and Roddy Tops especially. Sky is like an older sister to Shantae, and Roddy Tops is the cutest zombie I've ever seen. Though Roddy Tops' desire to eat Shantae's brains, well, it gives Shantae a headache. While I was generally impressed with exploring and the overworld traveling, not all problems could be avoided. One was working with the Game Boy Color screen size, as this becomes a problem when being able to see things ahead of time. Shantae is able to run, but rushing in and bumping into hazards outside the screen area happens pretty frequently. This is super apparent when moving downwards, as you're liable to fall into a pit or onto another hazard. Unless you know the area, you're forced to walk and take leaps of faith. The respawn system doesn't help. Sometimes you just want to get through an area. If you stumble into a pit, you respawn at the beginning of that area. And some of these sections are pretty long. For me, this early game area with cliffs and waterfalls was killer. Literally. Now it's not as bad when you're moving horizontally, which you're clearly doing most of the time. And having a look before you leap mentality isn't the worst thing. But for times when you're just trying to get from point A to point B, it can make traveling a burden. To be fair, there are warp points across the world you can unlock by finding baby warp squids in each labyrinth. Finding 4 and returning them to a mama warp squid teaches you a dance that warps you back to that town. For when you still have to travel through an area though, there are items like the Vanish Cream that lets you pass through enemies, or Float Muffins that bounce you across pits. This gets you around the issue, just at the cost of your gems. So, looks like it's back to gambling. Come on, Hap Genie needs some more items. Oh, come on! Speaking of labyrinths, they do not experience this problem, and they were much more enjoyable to romp through. These areas just felt better set up for the smaller screen size. Much less running into enemies and more appreciating the level design. They have a similar pattern of giving you a few routes to explore before you figure out the right one to take. Midway through is where you free other half genies who then teach you your transformation dances. So then you get the satisfaction of fully exploring the dungeon using your new ability. Just like towns and biomes, each labyrinth has their own unique take. One of them has a red switch, blue switch mechanic that makes you react to other colored objects like a magnet would. Another has you earn keys by bouncing eyeballs around using physics. There's even one that has these buzzsaw teleporter looking things that fling y'all around. It made each one memorable, and it stood out from the rest, much like the rest of the game's areas. Personally, the highlight of Shantae was discovering these new experiences that kept unfolding throughout the adventure. You travel through a variety of biomes, fight many enemies, and explore mysterious labyrinths. You encounter obstacles and can chat up the town's residents to discover solutions that may have otherwise gone overlooked. Seriously, it's rare you encounter NPCs that actually give helpful advice or gossip about interesting secrets. Shantae does that a lot, by the way, leaving breadcrumbs for you to follow up on later. There were many times I couldn't access some spots at first, just to realize later that a new transformation or even a shop item was the solution. That was cool. It's not just another attack item, it's a key to a puzzle. There were plenty of, oh, I can do that now moments, which made rushing back to that spot all the more exciting. Complementing the gameplay are the polished graphics and animations. This kept blowing me away. You've seen the footage in the review so far. For the Game Boy Color, doesn't it look incredible? To accomplish this level of graphic fidelity, Shantae required a special 32 megabit cartridge to get the graphics to work how WayForward intended. This allowed them to create 16-bit quality visuals on an 8-bit system. When talking about technical challenges, Matt Bozon mentioned how they had to perform techniques like layering sprites on top of one another to work around the Game Boy Color's limitations around sprites and the number of colors available. Also, Shantae's sprites would dynamically respond to her positioning against different lighting. Beams of light would make her shiny, and dark corners would hide her in the shadows. It was details like this that made Shantae feel complete from a visual sense. This was evident in things like the detailed landscapes in the background when traveling from town to town, or parallax happening in the dungeons themselves, giving them a better sense of depth. There's always something to fixate on, and you can tell WayForward wanted to utilize every bit of space they had available on the screen. And man, the animation is a treat. Shantae's movement is filled with such life, with her little hair bobbing and her dance moves. Though I will nominate Roddy Tops as having the best idol, and we'll fight you on that. Enemies look just as cool when they're moving around and recoiling from your attacks. Honestly, I was actually happy to run into an enemy just so I could see it move around again so fluidly. That's the power of top-notch animation, and Shantae's world could not be more alive.
Yeah, you know, that was good. That was a fun game. If only it had sold better. No, it was good. Good.
Unfortunately, for as well received as it was, Shantae did not break any sales records. Again, it only sold 25,000 copies. This was due to a few factors. For one, Capcom, the publisher, actually held on to a nearly finished version of the game for 8 months, wanting to release it alongside Resident Evil Gaiden. At that point, the Game Boy Advance had already been out for roughly a year, so a lot of gamers were already onto the next-gen system. 2. Requiring the 32 megabit cartridge was the most expensive hardware choice at the time, costing roughly $150 a pop. And 3. Shantae didn't fit with the target demographic at the time. As Matt Bozon stated, she's too sexy to be a kid's brand, but looks too girly to be a male gamer brand. There just didn't seem to be a happy medium for a majority of gamers. Despite the less than stellar sales, Shantae felt like a peak-level Game Boy game, and critics from the time agreed. Even with me being 20 years late to the party, Shantae's first adventure had my jaw dropped in awe. Much like this guy. My impression mainly stemmed from how it was developed for the Game Boy Color. I mean, maybe I'm not giving the handheld much credit here, but I couldn't help but be surprised by the quality of everything from gameplay to visuals. Of all the games I've played on the Game Boy, this is by far one of the best looking games on the handheld. And the game itself felt like a full-fledged adventure, offering lots of exploration and a feeling of becoming more empowered as it went on. Even having some gripes with the screen size, I respect WayForward's efforts to design around that the best they could and make everything work for the handheld. Although later than what would have been ideal, Shantae was a worthy addition to the console's library and a fantastic start for the series.
Even though it felt like an unfortunate result after all their hard work, WayForward was not deterred from using Shantae. In fact, the positive critical reception they got inspired them to do a sequel, but it'd be another 8 years before that happened. For now, their first release was the origin of an indie game icon. We just didn't know it yet.